He gave my diabetic daughter sugar as a joke, so I made every meal his enemy. I don't forgive people who hurt kids, especially not my kid, especially not Rory. She was 8 years old, diagnosed at 4. She'd learned to prick her tiny fingers without crying and count carbs before she could read properly. At night, she'd wake up shaking from lows and call for me in a voice that broke my heart, but she trusted me to keep her safe. Until Dylan, my roommate's cousin, a personal trainer who needed a place to crash. He had that arrogant smile you see on people who think suffering builds character, called her medical supplies crutches, and said kids today were too soft. Rory knew. First time Dylan walked in, she pressed herself against my leg and whispered, "I don't like him." It started with comments. In his day, kids didn't have all these conditions. Had I tried natural remedies while Rory sat there with her insulin pen? Strong people didn't need medicine. I watched her shoulders hunch every time he spoke. That Tuesday, I had to work. Just 4 hours. Night shift at the hospital. I'd prepared everything. Shown Dylan her routine 3 times. The sugar-free snacks in the special drawer. Her blood sugar log. The emergency glucagon in the red case. My number everywhere. Stop worrying. I know what I'm doing. I came home to silence. Found Rory on the couch. Her lips were white. Skin clammy and cold. Eyes rolled back showing only whites. The meter showed 420. Numbers that meant her blood was turning to acid, poisoning her from inside. My hands shook giving her the glucagon. She didn't respond. Called 911 screaming. The paramedics worked on her in our living room while I begged God not to take my baby. She finally opened her eyes in the ambulance, confused and terrified. "Mama, it hurts." The ER was hell. IVs in both her tiny arms. Doctors saying words like ketoacidosis and critical condition. She kept crying that her head hurt, that everything hurt, that she couldn't see right. They said another hour and she might have slipped into a coma. Might not have woken up. Might have had permanent brain damage. When she was stable, I went home for clothes. Found the candy wrappers in the trash. Regular candy, full of sugar. The kind that could kill her. Dylan was doing push-ups when I walked in. Asked how she was like he'd asked about the weather. I told him about the candy. Just a little experiment. To prove she doesn't really need all that medical drama. He'd watched my daughter eat poison. Watched her get dizzy, confused. Watched her lie down feeling sick, and he'd done nothing. Called it an experiment while she was dying. I stood there shaking while he explained how modern parents invented illnesses. How Rory needed to toughen up. How I was making her weak with all my fussing. Rory stayed in the hospital for 4 days. Had screaming nightmares about the nice man who gave her special candy. Wouldn't eat anything unless I tasted it first. Started hiding food in her room, under her bed, in her toy box. 8 years old and terrified of every meal. I found out Dylan had done this before. His sister posted warnings about him online. He'd tested her son's peanut allergy. Kid almost died on his kitchen floor. She'd filed a restraining order. Dylan was obsessed with his diet. Meal prep every Sunday for hours. Specific protein powders measured to the gram. Supplements timed to the minute. Bragged about his iron stomach and perfect digestion. Wouldn't touch anything processed. Said chemicals were killing America. I waited. Watched. Learned his routines. Started with his protein powder. Just a touch of milk powder mixed in. He was lactose intolerant but refused to admit it. Spent the next day clutching his stomach, running to the bathroom, then his meal prep. Tiny amounts of laxative in random containers. Never the same pattern. He started missing work. Clients complained about cancellations. The capsaicin oil was surgical. Injected into his protein bars with the thinnest needle. Watched him bite into one at the gym. His face went from confusion to agony. Collapsed gasping while people called 911. I escalated systematically. Ipecac in his smoothies made him vomit during meetings. Ghost pepper in his coffee had him sobbing. Always random. Always untraceable. He became terrified of food. Lost 30 pounds in 6 weeks. Stopped eating anything he hadn't prepared himself. Then stopped trusting even that. The end came when he found Rory's medical bracelet near his supplements. I'd placed it there perfectly. He broke completely. Convinced everything was poisoned. Ended up in psychiatric hold, refusing all food and water, clawing at nurses who tried to help. They had to restrain him to insert a feeding tube. Now he's in long-term treatment. Severe food phobia. Can only consume white liquids through a tube. Screams when they try solid food. His parents spent their retirement on his care. Rory's better. Still scared sometimes. Still tastes everything twice, but she's alive. He gave my daughter sugar to prove she didn't need her medicine. Now he can't even look at food without screaming.